All right, Sam, let's move on to the last video in our Progressive World Online segment. And this one was posted on the Bad Fate podcast. Title of the video is Beatles Overrated. And in the conversation, there was, of course, Brianna, and there was also Trevor Beaulieu. I believe people who've watched Bad Fate must have seen him from before. So Trevor Beaulieu, I just wanted to look up quickly who he is. He's a lawyer based in Brooklyn, but he's also known for his journalism. And also he has a podcast called Champagne Sharks. I've never watched, but go ahead.
Yeah, he also, if you recall, he had that interview. He was part of that interview with Dr. Krashner.
Okay, so he was there, yeah.
Yeah, and it was quite. They referenced that apparently the comment section, like us, didn't like Dr. Krashner very much, and he referenced that I apologize to Dr. Like, yeah, and everybody took his side anyway.
Yeah, so he was there, and the other person was, of course, the main person of this podcast. I would really say, I feel like this podcast was made for him, to share his thoughts, which is Leslie Lee. And I mean, I only know Leslie
from a struggle session.
Okay, that's where he's from. Yeah, I just know him through Bad Fate, really. Oh no, sorry, from Katie Halper. He's always on Katie Halper.
Struggle sessions.
Yeah. So this is pretty much, I'm going to try to give an introductory overview based on how I recall how the events have happened. You okay there?
Yeah.
We will not stop the show because of this, okay?
Because of my imminent death.
If you die, you die. We'll keep this going.
It's not even live. But,
yeah. But right, no, that was good. If it continues, I'll maybe have to cut something. But okay, as I was saying, apparently there's a new documentary out on the Beatles on Disney Plus, and the documentary, based on what Leslie was saying, it kind of takes the approach of behind the scenes, shows the behind the scenes process of them recording one of their last album or something along those lines. And Leslie apparently tweeted, which he had to delete by now because of the response. I think he tweeted, white people love, oh boy, do white people love Beatles. Anyway, something white people and love Beatles. And this led to, of course...
Wow, like at a...
Go ahead.
I think in a poll as well, Beatles were voted again like the most popular or the best band or something along those lines.
Yeah, so
like he was referring to documentary. And
so yeah, exactly. So he put out this tweet and he got a whole reaction. So then they decided to kind of make a video discussing that. And I do agree with a lot of the stuff that they were possibly saying about Beatles, but at the same time, I mean, like, okay, you can say that about any band. And pretty much Leslie's argument was that Beatles are extremely overrated, and people who don't know anything about music, they just say it's the best band ever, but it's all marketing and they're really not. And yeah, and white people are so sensitive when you talk about Beatles and they defend it so much. But yeah, and the Beatles suck. And if you ask, not they suck, but if you ask proper musicians and all that, they will tell you that the Beatles music is very simple and not complex. And that kind of made me think, like, yeah, of course, I don't think that's like too much of a radical statement for anyone, really. Whenever someone talks about the best movies ever or the best music ever, it's often like within the most commercial space and what the most amount of people have heard. And a lot of people might not necessarily be in music, they just heard it a lot, so they think the Beatles are the best. And I mean, they point out to all the marketing that is extra with the Beatles. You know, they always reinvent them, they always put their albums out, but they try that out with every, you know, kind of band and movie. So I don't find that to be, maybe it worked to a very well extent with the Beatles, but I don't find that to be unique. So I didn't quite understand what this whole thing, as if it was like a groundbreaking thing that they're telling us this. And then after that, this is a kind of good interpretation. And then after that, there was a lot of things being said, you know, white people this, white people that I feel like if you say those things and replace white with black and brown, maybe it shouldn't be the case, but people would be reacting, because Leslie was pretty much, you know, kept on talking about how white people don't understand like anything about music and all this, based on a reaction he got on his Twitter feed. I mean, I found it to be a bit too much to go from this
or let's
all the
say,
way to that.
or let's say a reaction he may have gotten throughout his life from his interpersonal relationships. That doesn't make it so.
And
yeah,
can I just say one
yes.
last thing? Just one last thing. Sorry, and I was done. My bad. It's just that he doesn't kind of acknowledge the fact too much that he threw in that word white in that tweet, which also might have got a lot of people react because of that. He didn't simply write, "Oh boy, do people love the Beatles." I mean, and that he didn't, he didn't really acknowledge that too much. I feel like, of course, we knew that's what the tweet was, but they didn't talk about it enough, I thought.
Yes, and I feel like again, like I felt exactly like you until it got towards the end of the interview, and I felt a bit like, oh, maybe they don't mean what they. Yeah, it's like what Thomas Chatterton, I think, said, and that's why I hate goddamn fucking talking about race, because it's such an imprecise word. Because Leslie Lee does talk about the fact that actually the white people in the UK, or British people basically, they don't have the same sort of, let's say, obsessive relationship as the people from US that he has seen or from his experiences. And then you have the what's his name, the other guy, I forget.
Trevor Bullier.
Trevor Bullier, for example, he argues, I don't know if it's true, that he found in his experience that British people have a better understanding of the blues music. So when you talk about white people, specifically they are talking about white Americans, it seems. But in the beginning, yeah, look, as I mean, I don't know if I should, like, I think they do, I mean, because we go back to this criticism pretty much every week. So I think at some point it's our fault in a way, because it feels like they seem to be just talking about America when they say white people. But as somebody who likes to, I wish they talked more precisely, like maybe, but then again, I don't even think white Americans are that, like in my experience, and I haven't had a lot of experience, but I've had known a couple, about 10, 15 white Americans. They didn't come across like the way they,
I mean, they were only talking about the most, like, sure, if you just put everybody under one blanket umbrella and take like the most dominant like level of like ideology and ideas that transcends the population, like, sure, yeah, but exactly, there was no breakdown. And in this video, they did keep on talking about England and the best music in the world. So this one, they were a bit more internationalist than their other videos, which make this criticism more fair this time. But I also want to come back to that, about the fact that, yeah,
I think there was a huge amount of smugness, by the way, going on about the fact that like there was one point, again, Leslie Lee struggle sessions, I love his shows, I usually love his takes, but there was one point that he said, like he says, oh, I'm sorry, my family cared about black music and black law and black this. And you're like, okay, well, each family cares about a certain type of music, one of my closest friends, their family is super into traditional music, traditional as in, like, very traditional, like they know their notes, blah blah blah. I've never seen them saying, oh, sorry, we are into traditional music with tones and we know the notes. Do you know the difference, major, minor? What is this?
100%, 100%. I mean, I felt smugness. Like there was so much of that. 100%. Like, it kind of felt like a topic where somebody finally who knows more about something had a chance to lecture everybody else about it. I mean, that's kind of the feeling I got throughout the video. Like everything, like nobody else understands music. They don't know anything about music, but I'm understanding and I'm telling you. And all of this, basing it on his reaction that he got on Twitter, a lot of it, at least, and on this video.
Full disclosure, I'm not at all, I mean, they have good songs, but in my subjective view, but I'm not a fan of Beatles. I I remember a white person, by the way, a super white person, one of my closest friends, was one of the first people who said, I was like, oh, Beatles, they're great, right? He was like, no, they're shit. Because they are like the Woody Allen, he said, they're like Woody Allen of music, because if you make that much music, some of them are bound to be good.
Yeah.
And everybody, since I was a child, knew that Ringo is apparently shit. They just needed somebody to do the thing. So they brought in Ringo last minute. Like that was the joke about Ringo always. Like
Mm.
nobody
Um,
was saying, I remember this joke like in a lot of shows. And so that Ringo was like brought in last minute because I think they lost their drummer or something. Like he didn't know how to play anything and all that. And yeah, there was so much smugness. And then
yeah. Only by Leslie,
uh,
though, to be fair, because I mean, Brianna, I found
oh
some
yeah,
parts she was doing like laughing awkwardly, if you ask me, at times when he was
and
going, and she's just laughing. And
lawyer guy.
Trevor also didn't
Trevor
say
was
anything. He was pretty good in this video. He didn't,
oh, I definitely agree pretty much
yeah.
with I think everything Trevor said. Really, like yeah. There was a lot of like yet like and. By the way, again, like don't. I mean, I'm somebody who hates a lot of David Lynch. I said, a lot of people who artistically are or mainstream James Cameron. I think is one of the worst directors ever. But I don't like it's a subjective thing at the end of the line,
Yeah.
not
No,
like,
no.
who cares? It's like that's one thing. And yeah, I wanted to talk about I don't know if you had anything to add to this part,
Yeah, I
the
mean,
smugness.
yeah, I mean, I want to also, yeah, the smugness, perhaps not, but it was just apparent from the get-go. At times he was lecturing you about music and not knowing and all this. And then, one thing, like, I want to maybe explain to him, maybe he doesn't get it. He's like, why do people defend the Beatles in such a way? Like, it just sometimes when people reach such a level of popularity and like beyond like normal level of popularity, then some people who aren't even into music or whatever at all, they just hear Beatles and then they've they've developed this knee-jerk reaction where they defend the person like nothing. Like, in MMA, they always complain about this. There's this fighter who's really famous, Conor McGregor, and he's reached such a status that when people talk about him in the comment section and defend him, they sound much dumber than people when they're talking about different people. Because I think they've reached such a level that some people are such superficial fans that they just have this kind of reactions. Anything good or bad, they just jump on you. So I don't know if this is something like Leslie is quite aware, but it happens with in all kinds of areas of life when Beatles are not, they are extremely famous, and 100% his point about marketing has a lot to do with it. I mean, couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I know. I wanted to say you made a great point there. I think it's not just to do with arts even. Anything that reaches that level of popularity and or public acceptance is a sort of a Rorschach. As in it's attracting people for a variety of different reasons. For example, I love my favorite director, Christopher Nolan, right? But I hate most of his fans. Like his fans were the ones that attack on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't remember. I think it was the third Batman movie or something. They attacked critics who I disagree with the critic. I think all his movies are great. Whatever. Okay. They know he hasn't done one bad thing. But I don't need to go and shout at somebody. But online, when you have it's kind of like, by the way, major religions, why do you have some sects that are completely psychopathic and, for example, are fanatical, and then you have some sects that are basically a bunch of hippies in every religion? Why? Because it's just reached the level of popularity that it's become a Rorschach for everybody to put their own thing into it. And although I do agree that like a lot of people do get brainwashed by their parents, as I think Leslie Lee says that, their parents and grandparents play the music, and because they love their parents and grandparents, that music becomes more respectable.
Yeah, but I really didn't understand that kind of attack on he kept on saying like the fact that it's your grandparents' music, that should be like the first clue that it's not good music. I didn't really quite get that. Did you
No,
remember
I do
hearing
get
that from
that a
him?
bit. Yes, yes, I do remember. I mean, okay, maybe in the music, I'm by the way, I am musically
Yeah,
as
same here.
talented as a rock. Come on,
Or
man,
interested
you
even. No. I mean, you for some reason think I know how to play music because I had my dad's guitar in my room, but
oh,
that's
it
pretty
was
much
that
the
your
extent
dad's
of it.
guitar? What? But I remember like you knew the bands and shit. Like
I
I
mean, I was a
never
bit
like
into
and
music, yeah, but
everything I yeah
very little
I
though.
like I
It's kind of like the
basically yeah.
movie thing, right? I never want to say I'm into movies because even the average person is more into movies than me. So yeah, of course I've heard of music before, but
Okay,
I
I
know
would
that
have
if you
all right.
point out five people, 4 out of 5 of them will listen more to music than me. That's kind of my point.
Oh, I see. I thought you're kind of into music like I'm into movies as a like quite enthusiastic follower. But
Well,
anyways, but so what were we talking about?
let me get the conversation going again with this comment that I took from her page. And I think like,
Oh, sorry. Wait. Uh,
yeah.
uh, just about the old,
Oh
like
yeah,
I
the old.
find the like for example, if anybody, again, I don't know anything about anything really, but I've seen a lot of movies, and my impression was, for example, Citizen Kane. For years, I was told it's like, yo, you have to watch this movie, and I understand now that at its own time it was a groundbreaking movie, but when you watch it now, it's the most boring and
Mhm.
it's just shit,
Yeah.
frankly. And a lot of like Star Wars, I find to be it's just it's awful.
And
But a lot of old movies I do think um are venerated for no reason other than the fact that at their own time they were groundbreaking, which is good, fair enough. But yeah, that's not like you do also have movies that are timeless. So
yeah, and no, I understand like sometimes you romanticize stuff from the past also. I mean, you're making a slightly different argument, but I think this goes with that. Some you romanticize stuff from the past, but it doesn't mean that so all music made back then is bad. No, I mean some
no,
are
no,
good
yeah,
and
yeah,
some are bad. So I didn't quite get
yeah,
that.
that's definitely yeah.
But let me read this comment also to bring back. This is like, they didn't really say this, but I think this is the overall sentiment that you get. So this person commented, what? So the three persons here think all Black artists or musicians are the greatest and all white or otherwise are trash. And
Yeah, it's not fair.
I mean, maybe a bit harsh, but you do kind of get
Oh no,
that sentiment from it, from watching the video.
I feel that's really harsh,
You think
but
that's too
like
harsh?
They talk about Iggy a lot and how he contributed. I think what sadly they talk too much about is this. Oh, they focus a lot on this, in my view, idea of cultural appropriation
Mm.
and the idea that all, sorry, the idea, for example, all these new things were made by Black people and then they copied them. They got copied by white people, and I, I mean, I just
I
want,
didn't even
I
get
do
that
think.
part because I don't know the history
Oh,
of music that well. But yeah, I remember
oh, I didn't get
hearing
it
it as well. But
either
yeah, no,
too
I know
well.
I heard it.
I
But yeah,
didn't know some of the people they were talking. I knew Iggy Pop, and I knew couple. I knew the what was the Jungle Fever band? I forget. Anyway, I knew the names, but I didn't know any of the details or anything. But I mean, there is this constant thing on the left that talks about cultural appropriation
Mhm.
of this music got stolen by that guy, these stories got stolen by these guys. I'm sorry, but the history of art, the history of humanity is cultural appropriation, right? All religions are pretty much
Yeah,
culturally appropriate. And for example, they keep talking about jazz and blues and this is culturally appropriate, that made safe for white people and all that. And by the way, one of the, I don't know if you've noticed, but in jazz and blues and all these music associated with, for example, Black Americans, what is the instrument they use?
the saxophone is that what it's
The
called?
saxophone. I think so. Yeah, the saxophone. And I don't know if anybody is aware of this, but the saxophone, I don't know, do you think it was invented by a black man in
No idea.
Nigeria? No, you don't know? No, it was developed in 1840 by Adolf Sax, a Belgian instrument maker. So now, all the
Yeah.
jazz music, all the great jazz music of all the black artists that has used saxophone in them. I don't know. Does Nina Simone use any saxophone in any of her work? Is cultural appropriation of a device made by a white man in Belgium? What is this like?
Yeah.
Constantly trying to dissect where did this came from? Where did all art is inspired by all other arts, and it's the whole point of art is to synchronize. And not, I don't know, not that's not the whole point of art, but it is what happens in practice. So I just don't like this. Yeah, then again though, but then they go back to the whole. But at the end, they go to
Don't
the
touch the
British
end,
thing.
because the end will come back to what they mentioned at the end, and I want to revisit the comment towards the
Sure.
end.
No, I
But
just
just
wanted to mention that the fact that white people in the it's weird to me. I don't know when they talk about white people who they are talking about. Really, are they just talking about some assholes on Twitter, or are they talking about the whole? I don't know.
Yeah, no, 100%. And the way you were talking, the point that you just made, I agree with it a lot. And I was gonna come with it towards another way, is that at certain times they seemed very self-centered, because they kept on talking about, okay, so there's music, the music played by, I guess, white people in the Americas and in the UK, and the only other example that they were thinking of was like, African American music, and like, bands from African American band could have been so much better, but they would have been not recognized. And then I was thinking, well, at least they're in the English speaking world, and they speak like English, so their music gets heard. But when you talk about, like, for instance, in the Oscars, what do they have? They have like a special segment for foreign movies, right? So like, what, in
Oh, that's
other
awful. Yeah, I
countries
hate that.
around the world, they don't have amazing musicians and all this. But yeah,
And
you just don't get heard. So you don't hear, people don't talk about that they are the world's best and stuff. So I mean, in a way, it seemed like they were very self-centered in their conversation, and not thinking about,
no,
like, globally this works. This is the case globally, right? You don't hear about musicians from X, Y, and Z or that country who could be a million times more talented, or movies that could be a million times better than any movie that comes out from the Oscars. And a lot of this have to do that, yeah, English is the dominating language of the world. The US is the most powerful country. Before that, there was England. So I believe all of this has to do, helped how English music is so popular and successful, especially English music from the UK.
no, yeah, I mean, definitely agree with you. I would add also that, like, the Oscar one is even more stupid. I mean, the Oscar is because Parasite won the Best Picture, and you're like, oh, so what is the criteria here?
Oh,
What are we
true.
going
So in
English
that case, he won the best one. It didn't win foreign movie, it just won overall best
Yeah,
movie.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So that kind of
yeah.
countered my
So you're
example, but that's like rare.
no. Like the Academy Award is the most idiotic one. It's just any prize giving ceremony for arts.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus Christ. Anyway, but I would say, like, let's say even like there are other English language speaking countries, movies of which, arts of which is not viewed, because not just because they're not, like, they may be white, but they're not, because they're not within the sphere of America, let's say Canada, or I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, Beatles were in the UK. But yeah, I mean, it's again, it's complaining about, yeah, I mean, for example, I've seen a lot of Iranian movies that are much better than Oscar winner American movies. But of course, they're not going to get the same attention. Why? Because they're not in the, nobody from that sphere sees them, right? So Parasite, by happenstance, got to get that attention, and it won. Like, it's life. And again, if you care so much about your art being given the prize, yeah, you shouldn't.
And yeah, so I just want to go back to the end of the conversation and that comment as well. But and one other thing that's very simple and basic. I mean, maybe I mentioned this, but yeah, I mean, music is extremely subjective. And I think I mentioned this. And the quote unquote best band isn't the band that plays the hardest kind of music like musically and stuff, because they mentioned like
Most
the Beatles music,
technically advanced.
is very like easy to play, and that's why they teach it in schools and stuff. Like, yep,
So what?
100%.
Yeah.
The masses, that's what they're drawn
Uh,
to. I mean, me, I could not tell if you put Beatles playing music or the most technically person. I mean, I wouldn't tell which one's more technical. I might have a preference in the type of music, but I don't think music is ever really judged based on how hard it is. That's not really a criteria often.
No, yeah. In art, I mean, this is some people, I think, especially, for example, again, cinema, something I know a little bit more about. Like some people love these artsy movies or these weird. I've never been into movies for like fantastical. I like them if it's possible, but I've always hated a lot of trans Malik, for example, movies because they're artsy in my view, as in like, what the fuck is this? Like, give me some story, give me something to root for, give me some, you know, kinetic movement or whatever,
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think difficulty of the shot, difficulty of, for example, I have a friend who does violin. It's very some of the most difficult things to play are the most boring.
Yeah, 100%.
If
I
to
mean,
me,
I
by the
assume.
way, to me,
Yeah.
again, it's subjective to me, and some people
Yeah.
like me. I don't think one is better than the other. It's not it's art.
Yeah.
It's taste. It's like arguing over. And yeah, the way they're, again, if they weren't so dismissive about it, if they were just
Well,
saying,
if
in
he
my view,
wasn't
they're
so
shit.
dismissive, really. Because I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
Brianna was much
And by the
less.
way, people remember the pop music from past eras. Nobody remembers the most complex, piece of art from the most
Yeah.
innovative, the one that the first used the, I don't know, ding sound in. Yeah, I don't know. I
No.
get annoyed when people care too much about art. Art, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and then people in the comment section, like I said, weren't too nice. But I just want to go back to this comment. So it says, so the three persons here think all black artists or musicians are the greatest and all white otherwise are trash. Then it says their reaction to Leslie's comment on Jay-Z was so telling. This was one of the worst episodes. So I'm not too sure why saying the reaction to Leslie's comment on Jay-Z was so telling, because towards the end, they started shifting a bit when like Brianna started saying, okay, I mean, you say that like, white people come to Beatles defense like crazy, but don't like black people, African Americans do the same thing for, I think she gave the example of Prince, or, I'm sure you can think of
Prince.
other people, and then Jay-Z, and then Leslie said, no, Jay-Z, I always didn't like him. And then he just reminded, I'm sure when he was in school, he was the guy who would always come like, no, what are you listening to? That's on the radio. Do you know of this undercover band, like shoving
Yes,
undercover bands
exactly.
down
But
your
no,
throat?
yeah, that's the thing. Yeah,
Underground,
underground
sorry,
band.
underground, not undercover. Underground. Underground bands down your throat. You're like, no, I listen to Red Hot Chili Peppers and
Cheers. Yeah,
every now
thank
and
you.
then.
I'm happy with my. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. But yeah, yeah. God damn me. Anyway, but I would say it was so telling because first of all, he was like Jay-Z's, like, pre-Beyonce and post-Beyonce, which is kind of like basically like, yeah, he's pre and post selling out, and because so he doesn't like, basically it came out that he doesn't like famous and mainstream artists, which is fine. A lot of people love. But then they talked about that, black, no, he said, no, black, as a kid, even when I was a kid, I was making fun of Prince and stuff, and that shows that exactly he was that type of guy that you were saying, the type that in a school would come up to, oh, like, what movie you're watching?
Yeah.
Oh, I watched Lord of the Rings. Oh, you mainstream, have you seen the original cartoon from, oh Jesus.
100%.
Yeah,
I mean, if
exactly.
he's doing this at this age.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out some examples for this. First of all, globally, it is completely growing up in 90s. It was completely opposite. If you didn't like hip hop and rap and black musicians, you were a goddamn pariah. And I was one of those people.
For many reasons, including that.
Including that. I mean, yes, to be fair, my prior status was not just that. Yeah, but That was one of the major. Like if you didn't like Tupac, which I still to this day do not like Tupac's music, people thought you were mental, and
Yeah.
I just don't like it. I don't even know what he's singing about. I don't know the lyrics. I just don't like this music. Or Ice Cube, Ice T. What was it? Which one was
I
the?
think
I
they're
don't know.
both. Ice Cube is definitely an artist. Yeah, he does the movies, right? He's Ice Cube, I think. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. They did rap before.
Yeah, he was.
I never
Yeah.
liked that. And yeah, if you didn't like black music, and if you didn't like the black stereotypical, by the way, I'm sure most black people were either blasé about the whole thing or, but you know, you didn't wear your jeans low or some shit. You were outcast, which I didn't. Again, another reason to be a pro. But you know, so this idea that there is this always necessarily supremacy of white culture is a joke. And I like to point out again, in 90s, OJ, black guy, got away with the crime. Again, why? Celebrity. R. Kelly, there was a tape of R. Kelly peeing on an underage person, like videotape, like cassette got. And I think he only recently finally got convicted.
Yeah.
You know, if you're rich and famous, doesn't matter if you got that level of marketing that Beatles got for one reason or other. Doesn't matter if you're black, white, whatever. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
and not
if
just
I were
black
to
people.
push back, I would to push back that dominant white, dominant white parts of the culture might get more of that. But you're right. If you reach that status and even you're black, you could, perhaps transcend like other problems in society.
Yeah. But so it's about the rich and famous part,
Yeah.
not about black or white part.
Yeah,
With
yeah.
Beatles or
yeah, sure.
R.
Maybe
Kelly
there is
or...
some in there and stuff. But yeah, I was thinking of like other. I mean, I was surprised they didn't mention Jimi Hendrix. I think they did mention him a little bit, but I don't know if that comes from my dad. Yeah, he passed away, but my dad used to say, Jimi Hendrix is the best guitarist, best guitarist, and he's African American, I believe. I hope I'm not. I mean, I know so little on music, I might be confused.
Your
but
father?
Yeah, no. That Jimi Hendrix. I'm saying Jimi Hendrix was known as being like one of the best musicians, and like he was black. So I mean, they can also be widely known as being a really good musician.
I try to teach you. Oh yeah, you're right. They talk about guitarists, Eric Clapton.
Yeah, they say like Clapton is crap or something. Yeah. and people in the comment section but again, Brianna wasn't that dismissive, and Trevor wasn't that dismissive, and they have zero music background.
Trevor was dismissive of Eric Clapton, I think.
Okay, yeah, he was. Okay,
I think, I'm not sure, but
yeah. And again, I 100% believe that the Beatles were probably not like, the most, if someone asked like, okay, come up with the craziest guitar solo, I don't think someone from the Beatles would have won.
No, I do think they were probably Backstreet Boys of their days. I do.
That makes total sense. I mean, that's what he was saying. That makes 1,000,000% sense.
Yeah, but that's not like, okay, whatever. Man.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, so just don't get into an argument with Leslie. And again, he didn't mention that he did mention that this tweet started with white people, but he didn't mention enough how that could have also pissed off some people, whether rightly or wrongly, but
Yeah, that's the thing though. That's because
that's kind of the elephant in the room a little bit, if you ask me.
Because I think if you're a hardcore fan of Beatles and you are white, it kind of implies you're their hardcore fan because you're white.
Yeah.
Not because you like their music, not because you understand music, not because of any personal thing. It's just because you're white. So it's a very, I don't know, just why bring it into the conversation? Just say Beatles are unfairly popular and they're shit. Well, yeah.